Good evening, welcome to Central News. I'm Hilary Entwistle. In today's news, the famous Hamilton Gardens is due for a review of its Reserves Act management plan, and the community are being encouraged to have a say. Hamilton Gardens Director Peter Siegel says there are questions members of the public should consider as part of their feedback, such as what does success look like for Hamilton Gardens and what steps are needed to achieve that success. Mr Siegel says stakeholder organisations have already put forward their views, and Council and Gardens Management now want the community's input.
Hamilton City Council is undertaking a major review of Hamilton Gardens at the moment, and really wants ideas of what its success looks like, where Hamilton Gardens should go, and how we can get there, how we can resource further development.
A Bay of Plenty health official remains hopeful Tauranga City can break a 21-year drought and bring fluoride back to the city's water supply. Bay of Plenty District Health Board Medical Officer of Health, Neil DeWitt, says there is more than 60 years of scientific evidence showing water fluoridation is safe and effective in helping prevent tooth decay. Neil says the Bay of Plenty District Health Board strongly supports water fluoridation for helping protect and improve the oral health of people's natural teeth, particularly children and population groups most risk of dental decay. Now, your weather for the weekend. Hamilton, your Saturday will be overcast with a few sunny spells, and then the showers creep in at night. Your expected high is 13 and an overnight low of 5. Tauranga, you can expect a few showers on your Saturday with a southerly developing. Your high is 14 and an overnight low of 5. Hamilton, your Sunday will be a mixed bag, alternating between showers and sunny spells. It will be chilly with a cold, gusty southerly. Your expected high is 13 and an overnight low of 1. And Tauranga, you are looking pretty much the same as Hamilton for your Sunday. Showers and fine spells with a cold, gusty southerly too. Your expected high is 14 and an overnight low of 2. Just ahead, the Fluoride Action Network's reaction to the Hamilton water supply debate. Welcome to Central News on TV Central. The tribunal is over and it has been decided to remove fluoride from the Hamilton water supply. The Fluoride Action Network has been campaigning for a long time, so we caught up with them to see how they feel about their victory, and is the fight over.
Siki, how happy is the Fluoride Action Network after the tribunal's decision?
Oh, absolutely very happy. What else can we say, you know? We had a party afterwards, and we also put a lot of work in. I mean, 15 years of working on it, you have to celebrate afterwards, so extremely happy.
How was the tribunal? Did it get heated?
No, it actually was very well, everybody was very well behaved. I have to say, when I came on with my Madonna suit, it got a bit hot, but nothing heated, and I just encourage everybody to have a look at the YouTube clips and that are on the Hamilton Council website and on YouTube to just check out how it all went, and check out day 3 and see the Madonna outfit. But otherwise, no, it's been very professional. Everything went really, really well.
What were some of the interesting parts of the opposition pro-fluoride's case?
Well, none of it was particularly interesting. It was the same old, safe and effective, oh, miles and miles of evidence, none of which they could produce. So it was the usual blab. There was nothing behind it. Well, I guess one thing I found really interesting was the ministry came there with their biggest guns. They had the most money to spend on the research, and they'd spent years redoing the research, and they came and they couldn't put forward a half-pie decent case. So that was interesting for me.
Can you give us some insight into why the Fluoride Action Network is against the fluoride water supply?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, we get mass medicated with no, well, our councillors are not doctors, so we never gave consent. We were never asked for consent. That's one of the reasons who wants to be mass medicated. There is, yes, they know exactly the quantity they put in the water, but there actually is no dosage. So you might drink only half a litre of water, I might drink 3 litres of water. So there's quite a big difference in what the intake is. That's another reason. And then, of course, there are some other health challenges that are coming to light now, after being fluoridated for 50 odd years, that, people have got problems now with, lots of young children with fluorosis. I've got a daughter with fluorosis and so on. So, I come from a dentistry family and, coming from Europe, we are not fluoridated in Europe, so it's only in New Zealand.
What is the history with Hamilton water supply and fluoride?
Well, in about sometime in the 60s, I can't tell exactly when, the City Council, without asking us, started putting sodium fluoride into the water. And then a few years later, they just switched to a cheaper form of fluoride in the form of hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is cheaper because it's a waste product. So we weren't ever asked. There was no campaign, no referendum, no tribunal, nothing. They just started putting it into the water, and ever since then, we've wanted to have a say in whether it was there or not.
So how can we look after our oral health now that fluoride isn't in our water?
Well, let's just be real. We actually, the Ministry of Health and the Fluoride Action Network agree that the only fluoride that is helpful to the teeth is topical. So the water that we're drinking is actually not touching our teeth unless we swirl it around. Now, do you swirl your water around when you drink water? It goes straight down, doesn't it? So we did some tests already before, and nobody swirls it around. So that's one thing. But what do we do? Well, first of all, we just have to brush our teeth twice a day. It's pretty simple. And if we feel we need to look after some of the poorer, children or whatever, well, actually that money that we save by not putting that hydrofluorosilicic acid into our water, we can buy a lot of toothpaste and toothbrushes for these children. So how about that? We'll just start with the topical, it's not that hard. And of course, educate the children on eating and the parents on eating less sugar. It's really not about the lack of fluoride that makes our teeth bad. It's actually the sugar or the processed food.
Christine, one of the councillors will try for a referendum on this issue. Will you oppose them?
Well, absolutely. Now, there's a whole interesting story behind that, and that particular councillor, he started his election campaign early. That's all I'd like to say about that. He voted against a referendum previously and voted for the tribunal process. So I don't think it's got a lot to do with anything but his election campaign, and certainly will oppose it because the referendum can never give the same quality of information, disseminate that in the same way the tribunal did.
He said that this decision is not what most Hamiltonians wanted. Do you agree with this statement?
Well, I don't know how he knows that. I mean, a lot of Hamiltonians aren't speaking to him. So how would he know? No. I don't know how he knows that. And I disagree. And I think if they do agree with him, they don't understand the process. And I really encourage them to go on the Hamilton City Council website and find that YouTube channel and watch all of the clips that were made of that 4 days, and look out for Siggy and her Madonna cones.
So what other countries have artificially fluoridated their drinking water?
Okay, besides New Zealand, as Australia and the United States and a little bit of Ireland, and I think 10% of England. So not many. So we think, the whole world is doing this. No, it's actually just part of the English-speaking world. I come from Germany, and fluoride was never mentioned. My parents, as I said, were dentists, and fluoride was in the toothpaste, absolutely. But apart from that, no, it's not going to the water anywhere. So what are we afraid of? It's just a very, very small portion of people that are getting fluoridated artificially. So let's keep it out and take it out in the rest of New Zealand.
Later on in the program, we talk with the Mayor about what will happen next. Coming up, Children's Book Award winner, does it have inappropriate themes? Welcome back. Joining me in studio tonight is Bob McCroskey from Family First to discuss a children's book that seems to be gaining attention for all the wrong reasons. Welcome to the studio, Bob. So tell us about this book and the award that it's won.
Well, it's won quite a prestigious award. It's the New Zealand Post Children's Book of the Year Now, I think probably if you think of a children's book of the year, you think of Margaret Mayhew, or you think of books that you'd be happy to snuggle up in bed with your child and read to them. This is a book. Look, can I just read what a mother and a bookseller who wrote for us and reviewed the book for us, she said this. She said, it deals with graphic sexual content and paedophilia, explicit descriptions of drug taking. There is a misuse of adult power and sinister manipulation of 14-year-olds. And she says it's a repulsive, graphic book that offers nothing in the way of hope, inspiration, or how to have a healthy personal relationship. Now, this has received a prestigious award as a Children's Book of the Year award. And we're saying, look, why would it be awarded that? The media picked it up because the language was so bad in it and the sexual content was so explicit. And in fact, New Zealand Post, when they became aware of how bad it was, they asked for explicit warnings to be put on it. Now, you've got to ask yourself, well, why give the award to the book in the first place?
Is it being targeted at children, or is it being targeted at that older teenage kind of population?
Well, the award section that it was in was for 13 plus, but they're saying it should actually be 15 plus. But we would argue that at high school it's just not appropriate. It's really for teenagers, it's not appropriate. It's an adult book. It's a pornographic adult book, really. I think most parents who read it would be horrified to know that it's being stocked in school libraries, and I think we're horrified that it's also carrying a prestigious Children's Book Award.
Because what are you guys wanting them to do? Are you wanting them to withdraw the award?
Well, we'd like the Booksellers Association to withdraw it. They're not going to do it. They don't see an issue with it. So we've asked New Zealand Post to withdraw the sponsorship of it, and there was substantial prize money. I mean, the author got $15,000 through the award, and of course New Zealand Post is funding that, so we're asking them to make a statement. But we've also written to the Chief Censor and asked for a classification, because it's sneaked under the radar, and basically it's in school libraries and on bookshelves, having not gone through the classification process. And this is possible when you publish books sort of just individually. So we've asked for an urgent classification on it. We'd like an R18 sticker on it. We'd like it shrink-wrapped as well.
Shrink-wrapped as well, you reckon?
Well, the thing is that, I tell you what, as soon as you put a book on the school library with explicit content, can guarantee it's going to be the most popular book in the library. And look, we were shocked when we read the content. It was very explicit. I think many parents would blush and would be embarrassed when they read it. It had the C word, it had lots of use of the F word, and this is supposed to be a children's book and supposed to be one of the best around. So either the standards have dropped or the judges have got it completely wrong.
Because have you read the whole book?
I haven't read it from cover to cover. I've read the excerpts, but I asked this mum, who's also a bookseller, to review it from cover to cover. I'd like to have the time to read it. Although, having said that, no, I don't want to read it because, let's face it, I think it pollutes your mind, and that's what our concern is, that it pollutes the moral innocence of our kids by reading that material. And it's interesting because only just a week ago, statistics have come out that said that sexual abuse by young people is on the rise, and one of the reasons they put it down to was the access that young kids have to pornographic material these days. Now, we all know that's available online, etc., but it's that explicit material, and it just feeds the mind. And I guess what they say, what goes in the mind then comes out in terms of action. So we just don't see any redeeming factor in this book. Is it telling a realistic story, a life story? Yes, it is. It's a Once Were Warriors type book. But the problem is that as it's targeted at young people, it could have told the story without all the explicit sexual content and the foul language.
Because I was looking online at all these reviews of this book, and there is quite a lot of debate about it. And some of the people were saying, these excerpts are pretty much being taken out and pulled out. And what about reading the book in context?
Yeah. Well, that's what our reviewer did, and she says that there's nothing in the way of hope or inspiration. There's nothing about how to have a healthy personal relationship. She says that all hookups are based on animalistic drives and is void of any kinship. So there's no moral message going through it. It's basically just a raw view of what someone thinks exists. It's the Once Were Warriors type issue, but it doesn't have any moral message coming out of it. But But beyond that, it's the fact that it's targeted at young people with this explicit nature. Now, if it's R18, adults can make that choice as to whether they read it or not. We'd recommend they don't. But when you're putting it in school libraries, when you're putting it available to young people and you're putting a sticker on saying, hey, this is a kid's book of the year, well, I mean, that's a prestigious award, and we just don't think it should be awarded to books like that.
And I suppose that award is actually theoretically a recommendation.
Well, it is, yeah. I mean, everybody looks at it. I mean, it's a very prestigious award. We're basically saying, or the judges have said, and I think they're completely off the wall, they've basically said, this is the book of the year, this is the one we want you to read. We would say the complete opposite. We would say this is the last book you want to read. And the good news is that a lot of bookstores are not stocking it. A lot of school libraries are not stocking it. We've been contacted all the time now by people who have checked with their local library or have checked with their school library, and they've said, no, we're not stocking it. Now, I think that speaks volumes in itself. I think the fact that New Zealand Post were so worried about it that they said, look, you need to put an explicit content sticker on this book speaks for itself. And I think the other thing is that the New Zealand Herald, when they broke the story, they actually decided as an editorial team that they would not quote from the book. Now, this is the New Zealand Herald. I mean, you know, it's an adult newspaper theoretically, and yet they themselves just weren't willing to quote from the book.
Well, thank you very much. It sounds like something we'll need to watch closely. Thank you. And the book we were discussing was Into the River by Ted Dawes. Stay tuned, as up next we chat to the Mayor about the fluoride debate. If you have just joined us, welcome to Central News. Earlier in the program, we chatted with the Fluoride Action Network about their campaign to take fluoride out of the Hamilton water supply. Now we see if that will still be the case.
Hi Julie. Now, can you give us a bit of an update as to what's happening with the current fluoride situation?
Yeah, so that's been ongoing for the last few weeks, certainly. So last year the council made a decision, instead of having a referendum, we would go with a tribunal process. And we based that decision on what had happened in New Plymouth, actually, and they'd gone through a tribunal-style process where they heard all the information from both sides, and then they made a decision, and we thought that would be a really good way to go. So we did that about 6 weeks ago, and we went through 4 days of hearings. There were over 1,500 submissions, and we allocated 2 hours for each pro and con of the argument, and we heard those submissions in lots of oral submissions from a variety of people. Great process, I have to say. I thoroughly enjoyed it and learned an awful lot. So we made a decision following that process, and that was to remove fluoride from the water pretty much when our stocks of the fluoride ran out at the water plant, and that was fairly soon actually after the decision. So then after that, some people got together and decided that they wanted to run a petition to see if council will consider holding a referendum in October this year when we have the local government elections. So Councillor Wilson, one of our councillors, fronted that, and that petition has now been received by the council, and there have been, now that they've checked the numbers that have signed, there have been over 1,500 people who have signed that petition, and that's asking council to consider holding a referendum in October this year with the local government elections. Now there's lots of sort of standing orders and processes to jump through, but on Friday this week, we're having an extraordinary council meeting where we will be considering that decision. Part of that is we've got to consider what we do with the decision we made last year before we consider what we're going to do with that petition and that request from the public. The other option, of course, for the public is, in New Zealand, democracy says if the public want their local government to do something particular, they can sign a petition. And it's 10% of those on the electoral roll voting in the city. So in our case, if around 10%, meaning 10,000 of our voters signed a petition to say they wanted us to have a referendum, the council would have to comply with that. So there's sort of a lot of options and variations on this, but on Friday I think it'll be a lot clearer because we're going to be making some decisions then.
And can you tell us about the tribunal? How did it go? Did it get heated?
No, it didn't actually, and I found it personally an excellent process, and we've had some really positive feedback about it. So what it involved was organising the groups who were for fluoride in the water and those against fluoride in the water, and giving them a decent amount of time to present their case, if you like. So, of course, the Ministry of Health and the DHB wish us to continue to fluoridate the water. So they came along and did their presentation, and they had their health officials and their doctors and dentists, etc. And then we had 2 hours for those who wanted us to remove the fluoride from the water. Same sort of people, same sort of qualifications, giving a different view. And I found that a very interesting process. I learned an awful lot, and I think all of those people that listened to the 4 days that we had, everyone that spoke to me afterwards said that they certainly learnt a lot and found the process really good. So that was giving a decent amount of time for us, the councillors, to hear what the issues were on both sides, rather than having, 3 minutes or 5 minutes just to come along and tell us what you think. So look, we got a lot of information, a lot of reports and literature and surveys and reviews from all around the world. We also had some people phone in on Skype from around the world. We also had a movie during that time as well, a sort of a documentary as well. So it was all open to the public. It was all filmed. Everyone can look at it on our website. The filming of it is on our website for people to sit down and look at the whole thing. All the submissions are on the website. So I think from a process point of view, it certainly was very good. And those of us that participated really felt that we certainly got the information we needed.
Now, moving on to the local government elections, which are coming up very soon, what do we need to know, or do we need to prepare anything at this time?
Yeah, look, I think democracy is about elections, of course, and those of us who take up civic roles, we're really keen on getting people involved in it. It's a very rewarding job, I have to say. I certainly love it, and I know that my colleagues on the council, once you get on the council, it's a wonderful job, and you really do feel like you've got an opportunity to influence the community you live in. So next week, next Tuesday and the following Tuesday, our electoral officer here, Jude Pani, will be running some information evenings for people who are interested in being candidates in the Hamilton local government elections. So that's at 7 o'clock in the reception lounge here at the council building. And as I understand it, the presentation will be about what does it involve? What's it like being a councillor? What do I have to do? What do I have to know? And what's the work about? How much time commitment? All those sorts of things. So we're encouraging people to come along and learn what it's all about and see if it's of interest to them. So the elections are in October. October the 12th, I think, is the date. And so the electoral, the expressions of interest, if you want to be a candidate, I think that opens later in July, and then it closes in August, and then right through from then it'll be campaigning for those who are interested. We have 2 wards in the city, the East Ward and the West Ward, and we have 6 sort of candidates on each side who stand for the election, and then the mayor is elected across the whole city.
We will have an update on this next week, and we'll continue to follow this issue in depth. That is the news for today and this week. We really want you to be involved, so like us on Facebook. Let us know your views. If you have news including your own video and photos, go to our website and hit upload. Thanks for joining us. I will be back next week with more guests from in and around our regions. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Have a lovely evening and a fantastic weekend.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.